Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. What Victor actually has in store for Kyle? Who do you think he will next manipulate? After assuring Kyle that he passed the test and was now eligible to date Victor's granddaughter, Victor abruptly changed his mind and assured Claire that he would not interfere with their relationship. When Diane and Jack voiced their concerns, Victoria and Nikki immediately jumped to Victor's defense, despite their suspicions. On this one, we agree with Diane and Jack. We believe we have a clear idea of Victor's scheme. And I'm not at all to blame. Victor was told by Claire that she would cut him off if he continued to protest about her and Kyle's relationship. That isn't possible for Victor. It is contrary to the rules of nature for a grandchild to not worship him. Victor changed his direction. He assured Claire that, even if it meant Kyle, he was kindly letting her live her one life. That way, she won't hold him responsible when everything goes wrong. Let nature do its thing. And it will collapse. Not because Kyle lacks maturity and is incapable of maintaining a relationship. Victor doesn't have the patience to wait, but that will help. Alternatively, what if Victor calls Summer home from Italy and delivers to her the same speech he gave Claire about how he was raised as a poor orphan and the value of family, particularly for a child who has both parents together? How is Harrison handling the breakup between Kyle and Summer? And a youngster will guide them. Indeed, Summer will coerce Harrison into crying uncontrollably over his huge blue eyes due to Mommy and Daddy's divorce and his consequent dual residence. That obsession should fade as soon as Victor tells Summer to tell Harrison that Claire is the reason he can't live with them both, even though Harrison did love her while she was his nanny. Kyle will need to break up with Claire and go back to Summer. Grandpa Victor will take Claire in his arms, pat her on the head, and murmur, "There, my sweetheart," as she tears about her shattered heart. Just keep in mind that I am not at fault for anything. Victor Newman has never been a man to play a straightforward game, and certainly not when it comes to family matters, especially when the honor of his name and the control of his grandchildren's lives are at stake. To the outside world, it may have seemed as though Victor finally made peace with Kyle Abbott's presence in Claire's life after his dramatic, half-serious test of Kyle's loyalty and intentions. At first, he told Kyle that he had passed, essentially granting him permission to date his beloved granddaughter. Then, in a whiplash-inducing reversal, Victor turned to Claire with a speech dripping in both benevolence and calculation, assuring her that he would not interfere with her choice of partner. But that was never the full story, and anyone who has watched Victor play this game over decades knows better. When Victor Newman takes his hands off the wheel, it is never because he has lost interest. It is because he has already decided which turn the car will take, and more importantly, who will be left stranded by the roadside when it crashes. The pivot Victor made with Claire was not born out of acceptance but out of strategy. When Claire boldly declared that she would cut ties with him if he continued to interfere in her relationship, Victor's ego took a direct hit. The very idea that one of his grandchildren would dare to reject him, much less threaten him, was unthinkable. It is, in Victor's eyes, a violation of the natural order. Grandchildren are meant to adore him, obey him, and absorb his wisdom without question. For Claire to push back, for her to essentially say my relationship matters more than my allegiance to you, created a dangerous precedent. If she could rebel, so could others. And Victor Newman does not tolerate rebellion within his bloodline. But Victor is a master of timing. Instead of confronting Claire head-on, instead of making her dig her heels in deeper, he shifted tactics. By telling her, with that grandfatherly gravitas, that he would allow her to live her one life. Even if that meant staying with Kyle, he planted a seed. What he was really saying was, I'm stepping back now, but when this goes wrong, and it will, you will not be able to blame me. You'll come crawling back into my arms, grateful that I tried to warn you. Victor knows that love stories like Kyle and Claire's rarely end smoothly. He doesn't even have to engineer the collapse. He simply has to let nature, and human weakness, run its course. But while Victor waits for the cracks in Kyle and Claire's romance to widen, he is already thinking several moves ahead. One of the most intriguing possibilities is his next manipulation target, Summer Newman. She is, after all, not only Kyle's ex-wife but the mother figure to Harrison, the child who represents Kyle's most vulnerable spot. Harrison is Kyle's Achilles heel, The one thing he would sacrifice everything else for. And Victor knows it. If he can pull Summer back into the picture at precisely the right moment, then Kyle's relationship with Claire doesn't stand a chance. Victor may well summon Summer back from Italy under the guise of family unity. Perhaps he'll deliver to her the same well-rehearsed speech he's given countless times before, about his hard childhood as a poor orphan, about the importance of family sticking together, about how children need both parents under one roof. He'll lean into the narrative that Harrison deserves stability, not confusion. And what better way to sell this than through Harrison himself? Victor will not hesitate to use a child's emotions as leverage if it means securing the future he envisions. Imagine the heartbreak when Summer, coached by Victor, sits with Harrison and subtly nudges him toward tears, guiding him to express how sad he is that Mommy and Daddy are no longer together. Victor doesn't even have to put the words in her mouth. He only has to suggest that she remind Harrison that the reason his parents can't be reunited is Claire. It's a brutal maneuver, but an effective one. Harrison loved Claire once, as his nanny, but children can be persuaded. Once Harrison connects his heartbreak with Claire's presence in Kyle's life, Kyle will be torn in two directions. No man can withstand the pressure of his child's unhappiness forever, especially not a man as guilt-prone and impulsive as Kyle Abbott. The beauty, or cruelty, of Victor's plan is that it leaves Claire holding the bag. Kyle will be the one to end things, forced into the decision by circumstances beyond his control. Claire, blindsided and heartbroken, will return to Victor in tears. And Victor, the consummate patriarch, will comfort her while whispering the words he's been setting up all along. I told you so, my sweetheart. But don't you worry. I'll always be here. By orchestrating events so that he is not directly responsible for Claire's heartbreak, Victor ensures she cannot accuse him of sabotage. Instead, he becomes her rock, the one who tried to protect her all along. Because in the world of Victor Newman, nothing is ever accidental. Every word, every gesture, every reversal is a move in a larger game. And the pieces he is moving now, Kyle, Claire, Summer, Harrison, are not just pawns but living, breathing legacies. Victor isn't just meddling in their lives. He's writing their future, one manipulation at a time. Victor Newman thrives when he sees cracks forming in relationships, particularly when those cracks involve anyone outside of his own bloodline gaining influence over one of his grandchildren. Kyle Abbott, no matter how polished he appears, will always be Jack's son in Victor's eyes, an Abbott who cannot be trusted to hold the loyalty of a Newman heir. Victor's history with Jack is long, bitter, and full of betrayals, corporate wars, and personal vendettas. For Victor, nothing would be more humiliating than allowing Jack Abbott's son to win the heart of his granddaughter permanently. It would feel like letting his greatest rival walk away with a prize that belongs to the Newman family legacy. This is why, beneath all the grandfatherly charm and seemingly hands-off attitude, Victor has already decided how this story ends. With Kyle forced out of Claire's life and into a position where he is tethered, helplessly tethered, to Victor's will. The genius of Victor's current scheme is that he doesn't even need to dirty his hands overtly. By planting the idea in Claire's head that he will not interfere, Victor has actually set the stage for her downfall. Claire is now lulled into a false sense of security. She believes that she won the battle of wills with her grandfather, that her threat to cut him off carried enough weight to make him surrender. In truth, all she has done is reveal her greatest weakness, her need to be independent from Victor. And that independence is exactly what he will weaponize against her. If Victor calls Summer back to Genoa City at just the right time, the entire house of cards could collapse almost effortlessly. Summer has always been Kyle's anchor. Even when they divorced, even when they drifted apart, there was always unfinished business between them. They share a child, though not biologically. Summer has acted as Harrison's mother, and that bond is unbreakable. Victor knows that children are emotional magnets. No matter how much Kyle loves Claire, no matter how much he insists that he's moved on, Harrison's sadness at the separation from Summer will pull Kyle back toward her. Picture this scenario. Harrison, with his wide blue eyes, asking his father why Mommy and Daddy can't live together anymore. Kyle stammers through an explanation, only for Summer, at Victor's gentle urging, to add that it's because Daddy has someone new in his life. To a child, this simplifies everything. Mommy and Daddy could be happy together if only Claire weren't in the picture. The heartbreak in Harrison's face, the tears streaming down his cheeks, would cut Kyle deeper than any argument Victor could ever make. It is emotional blackmail at its rawest, but it works, because it places the responsibility directly on Kyle's shoulders. Does he choose his own happiness with Claire, or does he sacrifice for the sake of his son? Victor already knows the answer. Kyle has always been impulsive, prone to mistakes, and driven by guilt. He will crumble under the weight of Harrison's pain. He will go to Claire and end things, probably in a clumsy, guilt-ridden way that makes her feel blindsided and betrayed. And when she turns to Victor in anger, accusing him of manipulation, Victor will lift his hands and protest his innocence. I told you, my sweetheart, that I would not interfere. This was Kyle's choice, not mine. Sometimes life teaches hard lessons. He will stand there as the wounded but wise patriarch, ready to scoop her back into his protective embrace. The aftermath of such a move would be explosive, not only for Claire but for the entire Abbott family. Jack and Diane, who have always been skeptical of Victor's intentions, would immediately suspect foul play. They would likely accuse Victor of orchestrating events behind the scenes, but without proof, their accusations would sound like bitter paranoia. To Kyle, who would already be struggling with guilt over Claire's heartbreak, his parents' suspicions could feel like an attack, pushing him further into the Newman orbit. This is exactly the kind of fracture Victor delights in creating. Abbott mistrust, Abbott division, Abbott weakness. It also reopens the door to one of Victor's favorite battles, pitting Newmans against Abbotts. By tethering Kyle back to Summer, and by extension Harrison, Victor ensures that Kyle will never be entirely in the Abbott camp again. He will always be straddling the line, indebted to the Newmans for Harrison's happiness. It is not just about breaking Claire's heart. It is about permanently securing leverage over Kyle Abbott, ensuring that Jack's son can never operate entirely outside the Newman shadow. But what if the Abbotts fight back harder than expected? Diane, in particular, has a long memory when it comes to Victor. She knows his methods. She knows how he operates. She might try to intervene by warning Claire directly, attempting to convince her that her grandfather is pulling the strings. But Victor has already anticipated this. He knows that Claire's resentment toward Diane runs deep, that Claire has never fully forgiven Diane for her past actions in Genoa City. If Diane is the one to warn her, Claire is more likely to dismiss it as Abbott manipulation. In fact, Victor may encourage Diane's interference, knowing it will backfire and make Claire cling more tightly to him, her grandfather, the one she believes finally respected her independence. Jack, too, may step up to protect his son, but his voice may be drowned out by Kyle's guilt and Harrison's needs. Jack has fought Victor for decades, and in some ways, this is just another chapter in their endless war. But Jack's problem has always been his inability to control Kyle once Kyle sets his mind to something. If Kyle convinces himself that breaking up with Claire is the right thing for Harrison, Jack's protests will fall on deaf ears. Jack will be left watching helplessly as Victor tightens his grip, his fury only deepening with every passing day. Another layer to Victor's strategy involves his own daughter, Victoria. Though she has defended him in the debates surrounding Claire and Kyle, Victoria is not immune to manipulation either. Victor may begin to draw parallels between her own romantic history and Claire's current entanglement. He could remind her of the time she ignored his warnings, only to end up brokenhearted. Ashland Locke, JT, and countless others. If Victor can convince Victoria that Claire is heading down the same path, she might begin to pressure her niece herself. The brilliance of this move is that it shifts the burden of interference away from Victor. Instead of looking like the controlling grandfather, he becomes the wise father whose daughter has taken his words to heart. It creates another layer of insulation for Victor, keeping his own hands clean. Even Nikki may be drawn into the scheme, though not willingly. Nikki has always been Victor's conscience, the one who tries to soften his harsher impulses. If she senses that Victor is pulling strings, she may push back, urging him to truly let Claire live her life. But Victor knows how to handle Nikki. He will look her in the eyes, swear that he is staying out of it, and remind her of all the times she accused him unfairly in the past. By gaslighting Nikki into doubting her own instincts, Victor once again clears the field for himself. The beauty of Victor's plan is its multipronged nature. If Summer and Harrison don't succeed in breaking Kyle and Claire apart, he still has Diane and Jack's interference to exploit. If that fails, he has Victoria's protective instincts to lean on. If all else fails, He has the inevitability of Kyle's own flaws, his impulsiveness, his tendency to self-sabotage, his guilt complex. One way or another, Victor believes, Claire will end up heartbroken, and Kyle will be back in the Newman orbit where he belongs. But there is one wildcard Victor may not have fully accounted for, Claire herself. Though she has shown signs of being naive when it comes to her grandfather's tactics, she is not without strength. She has already demonstrated a willingness to stand up to him, even threatening to cut him off if he interfered. If she begins to suspect that he has engineered her heartbreak, she may not return to his embrace so easily. Instead, she may double down on her independence, seeking comfort not from Victor but from the Abbotts, or even from someone entirely outside both families. This is the risk Victor runs when he plays God with people's lives. For every carefully calculated move, there is always the chance of an unexpected reaction. Still, Victor has always thrived on risk. He believes he knows his family better than they know themselves, that he can predict their every move. And most of the time, he is right. But soap history tells us that no scheme is ever perfect, no manipulation ever fully guaranteed. For now, though, Victor's web is tightening. Kyle doesn't even realize he is walking into a trap. Claire believes she has won her grandfather's respect. Summer may already be preparing her return, primed with Victor's speeches about family unity. Harrison remains the innocent pawn at the center of it all, the child whose tears will shape the destiny of the adults around him. And Victor? He will sit back, watch it unfold, and when the pieces fall exactly as he predicted, he will remind everyone, Jack, Diane, Nikki, Victoria, Claire, that he only ever wanted what was best. He will cloak himself in righteousness, all while knowing he orchestrated every heartbreak, every tear, every fracture. Because for Victor Newman, control is love, and manipulation is destiny. Once Victor successfully drives a wedge between Kyle and Claire, the question becomes, what's next? Victor Newman never stops with one victory. He is always thinking 2, 3, even 10 steps ahead. Breaking up Claire and Kyle is only the beginning. The endgame is ensuring that Claire emerges from the wreckage more dependent on him than ever, while Kyle finds himself permanently tethered to the Newman family through Harrison. When Kyle walks away, Claire will feel devastated, blindsided, and humiliated. But Victor won't let her wallow too long. He will step in immediately, wrapping her in the warmth of his concern, reminding her that he never truly trusted Kyle, and insisting that she deserves someone who will never let her down. And here lies the next twist. Victor will begin quietly steering Claire towards someone else, someone of his choosing, someone whose loyalty lies firmly with the Newman empire. Perhaps a younger executive within Newman Enterprises, someone Victor can groom as both a successor and a suitable match for his granddaughter. Or, in classic soap fashion, perhaps even Nate Hastings, now cut off from order and ripe for manipulation. Imagine Victor whispering that Nate, with his professional stature and family loyalty, is far more deserving of Claire than Jack Abbott's unreliable son. Meanwhile, Kyle will spiral. Losing Claire will feel like a defeat engineered by forces he doesn't fully understand, yet his guilt over Harrison's needs will prevent him from fighting back. Back with Summer, tied down by responsibility, Kyle will simmer with resentment. Victor knows this simmering tension will only make Kyle easier to control, because a man in conflict is easier to manipulate than a man at peace. Victor may even dangle opportunities for Kyle within Newman Enterprises, offering him career stability as a way to provide for Harrison, while keeping him firmly under his thumb. For Jack and Diane, the fallout will be excruciating. They will see what Victor has done, but without proof, they will be powerless to stop it. Their son will drift further from them, more entangled with the Newmans than ever. Jack's fury will boil over, but every attempt to protect Kyle will push him further away. And Diane, who knows Victor's tactics better than most, may find herself reliving the battles of the past, realizing that history has come full circle. Once again, Victor is tearing apart her family for his own ends.